Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. I am your host, Theophilus. Today is September the 2nd, 2024, and happy Labor Day to you. Interestingly enough, a week ago I was talking about corporate greed. And so Labor Day, if you didn't know already, is actually the holiday celebrating the unionization of workers. And you know how that is. You have to have a way to fight for your rights, and you can't just let people take from you and walk all over you. And so that's why unions are so important in our day and age. We wouldn't have to have it if we didn't have, people that lord it over us and manipulate and take advantage of us, right? Speaking last week, I said, there's a story of a company that had hit sales targets and exceeded them, and the corporate head honchos decided that only a pizza party was enough. Order some pizza for lunch and then back to work. It's just mind blowing. And so, today's podcast, I want to share about something that is very, very interesting. It's not very often that I have a topic where I just kind of hit record and just go with the flow, and just trust the Lord, pray and ask God, hey, Lord, please, use my tongue how you will. The thing with that is I am not infallible. I am not a person who is, not everything I say is gospel. And I never want you to think that, even if I was a pastor or somebody who has education and being a teacher at church, is that you should always test. Regardless of what you believe, you should always test. You can't just take something for gospel. For example, you can't just take what the world tries to preach on trans, this and that you can transition and that you can, that men can have periods and all this stuff. You can't just take that and just say, oh, because society says it's true, that I should just accept it as truth. That is not how truth works. And just because somebody feels like it's the truth, it doesn't make it a truth. Your emotions are not truth. It might be true for you, but it doesn't mean that truth, that it bends truth to your will. And that is very important. One of the things about being in this podcast, if you're listening for the first time, is, I also like to coach. I also like to hold space for people to go deeper about the things that they're going through. Coaching is really the art of taking somebody from where they are now to where they want to go. And I say really from zero to infinity. And whereas therapy and counseling is really from negative to zero. What do I mean by negative to zero? Well, it could be some kind of trauma that was sustained back in their childhood, or something that happened traumatically that affects who they are right now. And they are not at a place of health, and thus they need to get from that negative to zero. Coaching is really from zero to infinity. And what does zero to infinity mean? Well, let's just say this person has dealt with their trauma and now is ready in a place to want to grow and do personal development. That is the art of what I do, is to take a person from zero to infinity by holding space for them. Hey, what's coming up for you? What's your context? Tell me your context. Tell me what it is you want to work on, and how can we support you in getting there, right? And it's not any kind of journey where I lead them and say, hey, so move your foot, 4 more inches, there, and then put it down into that step there. That is not the process of coaching. Coaching really is about the person's self-discovery, for me to facilitate a deeper understanding of the things that they've presented to me and the contexts that they've given. Now, today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about something that is dangerous, because as a coach, and because there are those out there who will lead people down the wrong way, that it's very easy to fall prey and victim to. And I'm going to talk about this from a particular case last year that was all over the news, and one in which that just stumbled into my purview. And it's something that we definitely need to talk about, because there's a danger with that. This episode may sound, to those who don't understand, I want you to come at this with an open mind. Okay, don't label me. Don't go quickly to, wow, Theo, that's very sexist of you, and then immediately with that judgment of who I am and my character, that everything else comes out, you're going to listen from that perspective. I want you to maintain a very open mind about this, right? And I also want you to do your own research. I'm going to mention the names. You can go and look it up yourself. You can see all these things for yourself. And I'm going to present it all to you, and you can see for yourself what I mean, okay? And I'm going to be talking about stuff in the Bible. You may not believe what I believe, but come at this with an open mind to think for yourself. What is the truth here? What is it for me? Hey, it's okay. If you don't believe what I believe, that's fine. I'm not here to preach to you. I'm not here to tell you what you need to believe. And if you believe if you are convinced to believe what I believe through my words, I would caution against that also, is that you need to test these things, and I want a genuine relationship for everybody with God, but not from my words. I don't want it to be me smooth balling it with some kind of snake oil salesman technique that gets you into into having a relationship with God. That's just not what God believes, and I firmly am against that. That being said, coaching is a very special art. It can be a very dangerous art, just like anything can be taken the wrong way. There's a spectrum in which it can go really, really well, or it can go really, really bad. I want to speak of something going really, really bad. Now, in Utah, and if you know anything about Utah, Utah is a very Mormon state, and the grasp that the Mormons have in Utah is very strong, and is very deep-seated. And it's interesting because the Church of Mormon is very much about control. The same can be said about Scientology. Very, very strong control. A coach like myself, as religious as I am, with my beliefs, one of the things that you won't find in my coaching is this push of my beliefs on other people. I will present to you what I believe, but in no way am I telling you to do what. Remember, the process is not, hey, take that step right there in front of you. Okay, move your leg like this. It's not about that kind of control for me. My approach, my perspective is always to give somebody my perspective, give somebody what I believe I would do in that situation, and the person is left to take their own action. At no point am I saying, hey, I think you should work on this. I think you should do this. You should totally do this and that. My things are merely suggestions. I would say stuff like, hey, I would ask, actually, coaching is really the skill of asking questions at the right time and letting the person go deeper. Is, what do you feel like working on today? What do you feel like working on this week? What do you feel after what we've talked about, the context you just shared today? Where do you think we should go? And this is a process that I invite God into, right? Even though the person may not have a relationship, I ask in the spirit, like, Lord, like, ultimately, if you are a God of love and you genuinely care for this person, you would want what's best for this person. And so inviting God into that conversation, even if that person does not have a relationship, it is something that is like, God wants what's best for this person. So why would God give me something to give this person, or say to this person, or suggest to this person that is not good for them, right? And so if it's against itself, if God gives me something that's like, oh, Lord, that's not something very loving of you to say, right? He would have contradicted himself. A God of love is not capable of giving me something negative for somebody to do. Now, if a coach doesn't have that personal relationship, does not have that connection to the Holy Spirit, to the Spirit God has given us to have that conversation, it can be very easy to mislead somebody down the wrong road. And this happened. This is something that has happened. Now, the story that I'm talking about is a family called the Frank family, Franke. You can go and look it up. Ruby and Kevin Frank is the story that I'm going to talk about. Ruby and Kevin were together, and they had a family of 8 people, and they had this YouTube channel. They were like celebrities, and they would document their family and all this stuff. And, they were vlogging, right? A vlog channel, whatever. And they were very, very successful at what they're doing. At some point, Ruby and Kevin got in connection with this life coach by the name of Jody Hildebrandt. Hildebrand is Hildebrandt. And this life coach, this woman life coach, they started having sessions together, conversations together. And over time, what came to realize, and details came out eventually, that Jody is an expert alienator, right? Alienating husbands and wives, alienating mothers and daughters, sons and fathers, and siblings, just alienating people. One of the things that Jody coaches on is, and it's a topic that comes up a lot, especially when you're coaching couples, right, is pornography addiction. Now, the belief, and I've seen in the details of how she does, her coaching, is that it's and even the Church of Mormon is, they have this belief that and I need to be careful here, right? And I want to get all the details right, is that men are sexual animals, like deviant sexual animals, and women are the gatekeepers, or so they say. And I'm looking over where I saw that, because this is that kind of thought already. If that is how you've if that is the perspective from which you look at a man and a woman, you automatically and actually from a Christian perspective, is that it removes what Jesus did on the cross for us. Yes, sin is still something that we do, something that everybody, it's not like you are just perfect after you've accepted Jesus into your heart, right? You're still a sinner. You are still asking for forgiveness, and you're still seeking that. The journey does not become perfect after you've made that decision. It says, I'll read some of this here. It says, pornography is considered a huge sin by the church, even perceived by some as a gateway to serious crimes like murder. He's a former therapist, said by this guy, who's a former therapist and a podcast, a host of Mormon stories. Seeks to bring awareness to issues within LDS culture. LDS is Latter-day Saints culture. He said LDS members are taught that men are sexual animals and women are the gatekeepers. Dellin interviewed several former patients of Hildebrandt's and reviewed connections material for his podcast. So if this is your view of this, right, very easy that a coach who is a Mormon, who is a female, would, work to alienate, and she did work to alienate husbands and their wives. And this play actually did take place in Ruby and Kevin Frank's life, is that she alienated Kevin from Ruby and the rest of the family. And from the details that are coming out about, or details that came out about this, is that Ruby told Kevin not to contact the family, and Kevin, I guess, agreed. I don't know why you would do that, but agreed. So he just continued paying child support and no contact with the kids. So no accountability, one, for the mother, right? And there was no legal separation. It wasn't fully finalized. And so what ended up happening, and why is this significant, is that there was an incident where this child, this 12-year-old malnourished, emaciated child, showed up at a neighbor's house, rang the doorbell, and asked the neighbor to call the police or bring him to a police station. It was this 12-year-old kid. And what they found out later on, and the police did a search of this life coach's house, was two of Ruby's kids confined in a closet malnourished girl, had her hair shaved completely off, and bound in duct tape and rope, and there was cuts and stuff on their hands that was, they had applied honey and cayenne pepper to make it heal faster and all this stuff, and just very malnourished, very underfed, starving children who were clearly abused, and it's just saddening and sickening to know that this was taking place. And that really was this danger of, well, how did this happen, right? So what came to learn is that Ruby and Jody became business partners, and they started to talk about, started to run this YouTube business together. And who knows? Maybe they were coaching other couples too. And what's crazy is that there were a whole bunch of former male clients that came out and said that they were indiscriminately, treated for porn addiction and alienated, right? Alienated from their spouse because, hey, you're an animal, you're a sexual animal. You are borderline murder, you're borderline serial rapist, whatever, a crime because of this proclivity to pornographic, material. And so this is dangerous, right? Right? Because this woman is coaching couples on things that they shouldn't. Now, where does this lead, right? And this is where it's starting to this can get very, people can take it the wrong way. And I want you to come at this at an open mind, with an open mind, is that read my heart and look into my heart right now as I open it up to you to tell you where I am coming from when I say these things, okay? One of the things about the church is that there are, and I believe that for good reason, okay? And this is not to say that women are bad, blah, 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 okay? It is not that, right? That there should be no woman pastoring a church. No woman, and to be clear, spiritually leading a man. Spiritually leading a man. Because in essence, this is exactly what Jody did. It was leading spiritual matters over men, over a family, over a husband, over a father. She has no place to do that. Same could be said whenever I go to coach. I don't, if the subject matter is something spiritual, I will not do that with a woman. I would not coach a woman because there's a very slippery slope, and there's a danger to coaching a woman. She is opening herself up to me, and I am, you have to reciprocate. You have to have vulnerability to get vulnerability. And so there's a danger when it comes to coaching the opposite gender. And there's something that I need to really stay away from. And so for her to be doing this with couples and then alienating the men, it's very easy for her to do it because the woman is going to see things from her perspective, the way their mind works, the way that they communicate, the way that they are wired it's mutual. It's a one-sided affair, and suddenly you have a bias that has been wedged in between the couple. And it's no wonder that Jody could alienate the wife or the husband from the rest of the family and make him out to be a sexual animal, make him out to be a deviant, make him out to be a criminal or whatever before he's even done any of it. And the danger here is that what I believe is that Jesus paid on the cross for all of our sins, regardless of whether or not you have a relationship with him or not. That in itself removes my guilt. If I chose to accept, removes my guilt. The way she coaches does not remove that. It is discrediting what Jesus did on the cross for us. What Jesus did on the cross for all of us. And so the way that she was leading these sessions was very, very dangerous. And former clients have come out and said that, she alienated her family, like alienated people in their, like it ruined marriages, right? Because there's no hope then. right? Because if this person is a sexual animal, then there's no hope for you, right? You're just going to continue to suffer that. And, newsflash, this is something that men deal with every day. This is something that is a constant struggle. This is something that men talk with other men about, talk about getting over those things, right? Lust is something that the Bible talks really heavily about, right? It's something that it's not uncommon to man. And it's nothing new under the sun, like the Ecclesiastes says. Now, I've already talked about it, right? Pastors, women pastors, not allowed in the church, not allowed to spiritually lead men in a church setting. And this is where it's probably one of the most heavily debated, contested things. And I'll venture to say that there are probably listeners that I have that have followed me for a long time who are probably going to be like, dude, you're getting on, thin ice right here, right? But this is what I firmly believe, and this is what I think that the Bible has truth about. And again, do your own research. Don't just take my word for it. If you don't like what I have to say, good. Go and test it. Go and learn for yourself. Go and ask authorities. And you know what? Get a very nuanced opinion. Don't just seek opinions from people who you think will give you the answer you want to hear, because then you're not really searching for truth, right? You're just getting one side of it. Get the other side. What does the other side say about this? So I want to read you one verse, and this verse is what is going to push my point. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 11 to 14. I think that's the verse. Yes, it is. So the English Standard Version says, verse 11, "Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor." Now, I can only imagine somebody who's not believes what I believe and says, "Whoa, that is a very sexist verse. How dare the Bible say something like that?" And I want to read this excerpt from gotquestions.org. This is biblical answers to very modern day questions, and this is something that a site that I go to frequently to get some perspective about some of the things. This particular paragraph says, the structure of 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11 to 14 makes the reason why women cannot be pastors perfectly clear. Verse 13 begins with "for," giving the cause of Paul's statement in verses 11 and 12. Why should women not teach or have authority over men? Because Adam was created first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived, it was the woman who was deceived. This is verses 13 to 14. God created Adam first, and then created Eve to be a helper for Adam. The order of creation has universal application in the family and in the church. The fact that Eve was deceived is also given as a reason for women not serving as pastors or having spiritual authority over men. This does not mean that women are gullible or that they are not all more easily deceived than men. If all women are more easily deceived, why would they be allowed to teach children who are easily deceived and other women who are supposedly more easily deceived? The text simply says that women are not to teach men or have spiritual authority over men because Eve was deceived. God has chosen to give men the primary teaching authority in the church. Many women excel in gifts of hospitality, mercy, teaching, evangelism, helping, and serving. Much of the ministry of the local church depends on women. Women in the church are not restricted from public praying or prophesying, only from having spiritual teaching authority over men. The Bible nowhere restricts women from exercising gifts of the Holy Spirit. Women, just as much as men, are called to minister to others, to demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit, and to proclaim the gospel to the lost. Listen to what that says, right? It is not being sexist. It is not saying that women are not able to do this and that. The one thing that it's not is to have spiritual authority over men. And what Jody did in these couples relationships, marriages, is exactly that. She exercised spiritual authority over men and manipulated them. Now, I don't know what you believe about Mormonism. I don't know if you are a Mormon yourself, but I would ask you to think about these things. Is that what I believe about God is that it's not about control. It's not about telling you what you need to believe or how you need to believe it and what you need to do to attain some kind of thing. That is all legalism. And that is the danger with religion, is that when you get to legalism, then suddenly it is not about God. It is not about what Jesus did on the cross for us. I want to read something else to you that is about the Mormon Church and what I view them as a cult. And it is something that, do your own research into it. By my definition, heavily a cult. What the Mormon Church believes is that it's always you. And this is a comment from an ex-Mormon. Never the church. You're broken and you need the church to fix you. Infallibility of the leaders, right? These are things that you've heard me say already, is that I am not infallible. I need to be tested. My things should be tested. Everything should be tested. Church's attempts at control of information, excommunication, soft shunning to straight up shunning people. The mind games members have to play to make sense of the doctrine and some of the teachings. Polygamy, controlling women's sexuality, control. Right? They're the gatekeepers, right? Men are the sexual animals, the deviants. And it's all about control, right? And the church is not about control. Church should be a place of acceptance of those who, have sin. They are sinners, but to accept them, but not to accept their sin. It's not to accept their sin. There's a very big difference. But there's but the leaders are not infallible. They, as a coach as well, is that I am not infallible. And you must test. And so there's a danger if you go to find a coach and this person is suggesting to you things that you need to do, that you have to do, and then forces you to adhere to it or manipulates you to do it. That is where you really should be careful. What's truly sad to me in that story is that the father didn't fight harder for his kids. And just accepted it. See, because if leaders are infallible, it doesn't matter what you say, because you can't challenge them. Your truth is not as truthful as their truth, right? And that is, at that point, it is a lost cause. You can't argue with a leader. And you could say whatever you want. So, as a church leader, you could say anything. What was the belief? I think that Joseph Smith was like, well, if whoever can please me the best, to multiple women, whoever can please me the best, then I will assure a spot in heaven for you, which is very dangerous thought, very dangerous thinking, right? And, if you can imagine people falling for this, how many people fell for it? How many people fell victim to it? And put themselves in a very compromising, vulnerable situation with somebody that is just ultimately taking advantage of them. Which is why life coaching is something that I take very, very seriously. Yes, it's not a regulated field, but it's something that I take so seriously that, I know that I am just as imperfect as the next person. I am there really just to deepen their understanding of their own thing, and just use what they're saying, giving to me, and feeding it back to them. Hey, you said this. Hey, I noticed that you said it this way, in this manner. Recognizing patterns in the things that they're saying. Ultimately, what I don't want as a coach is somebody to get help from somebody, and then, years down the road, they are still in the same place. Like, that is, you've failed as a coach at that point, right? But also, you also want the journey to be a personal one. You want something like Inception. If it's a positive idea and the person implanted that idea themselves, then it takes root better than if I implanted something that they didn't ultimately need, or something that I, fed in there that had nothing to do with their journey, and something that I thought was maybe potentially the best for them. That is a danger. What is the point of today's episode? I really think that we need to be careful, and we need to test. We need to be able to look at things objectively as well, but also what is the backdrop? What is the thing that you're measuring up this truth against? What is or that fact or that thing against? We must have something to measure that up against. And to me, that's the Bible. You can't, where else are you going to trust Google? You're going to trust what society says. There really isn't anything as reliable as the Bible. It's an eyewitness document, right? This is a historical book, right? And there was principles that was given over hundreds and thousands of years, that is for us to hold on to and to hold and to live our lives around, right? If you look at the birth of modern world of the United States and of Canada, a lot of the things that you find in there and the laws are tied back to the Bible. The origin of them is the Bible, and we've gotten so far away from that, and now we're seeing the results of where we are. We're seeing the results of this walking away, and now what is it? Now truth is whatever you want to believe about it. Truth is what I say it is. If I want to be this, I can be that. If I want to be a telephone booth, I can be a telephone booth. This is not truth. That is not truth. And you can imagine if the world starts teaching that to our children, how far we get away from it. Right. And if there's institutions, religious institutions that go to teach things that we don't ultimately believe to our children, then it invalidates us. It invalidates us as parents. It invalidates truth. It invalidates what God wants ultimately for us. And so that's really all I wanted to share in today's podcast. I've noticed that I've gone over half an hour already. Don't ever really like to go that much longer. But like if you're looking into coaching, you have questions about it. Yeah, I might not be that coach for you, but I'd love to have a conversation with you about it and to talk to you about it and maybe guide you a little bit of what does that look like. If you ever have a question about something that happened in a conversation with a coach, hey, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation and talk about that, what was happening, break it down, open context, and also to challenge you a little bit, right? And to let you know. And so now my neighbor's cutting the grass, so I guess it's a good time to call it. Don't forget to to be present and stay noble, because we're not promised tomorrow. And until next time, bye for now.